And there we are, the final product. Xin chào các bạn. Welcome to my channel. So today's video we're doing daikon pickle Korean style or kimchi style. It's going to be quite simple, quite straightforward, and actually it's turning a boring daikon into something very flavorful, fragrant and very tasty and perfect for salads. It will work well with all kind of meat. You can pair it with steak, chicken, fish. It's such a great addition to any meal. We'll be looking at some old daikons that we've got in store. So this is what they look like. Unfortunately, they are been battered and bruised and they've been sitting in the market for a while, so it has this very tough and sort of ugly skin on them. Specifically this one, who's looking a little bit battered, a little bit horrible, and it needs a new lift, but it's such a great vegetable. And don't throw it away when it looks like this. Simply just peel back the skin and it will look as new as this perfect white underneath flesh, and it goes great with everything. So preparing the daikon, peel the vegetable, peel the daikon and then slice thinly. You can have it either in matchstick shape or you can have it in disc shape. I've gone for disc, which are lovely. You can see the inside as well with a great lattice shape. They are stunning vegetables, so don't throw anything away. Make sure you top and tail them and then give them a good wash and they're ready to go. So they should be looking like this. Lovely lattice shape, stunning vegetables. Place the daikon that you've sliced and cleaned into a bowl. I go for a really large one because you need a huge volume so that you can toss them in salt and sugar to take and extract all the water that's held within the vegetable. This simply just takes out the unnecessary excess water that it contains. So what you want to do for the next step is place in the bowl with the daikon 2 parts sugar to 1 part salt. The reason for this is that you're essentially just extracting all the water out of your daikon. You're kind of softening it and breaking the cell barriers down so that you're having a more flimsier vegetable, and therefore the actual seasoning like the Korean chili peppers and the fish sauce later on will penetrate through those. So place your 2 parts sugar to 1 part salt. I will leave all the recipe and the measurements down below, but again, this is of course based on how much you have. If you have less daikon than I have in this bowl currently, then obviously reduce your salt to sugar ratio. Make sure you mix this thoroughly. Actually, you really want the sugar and the salt mixture to really cover the whole surface area of the daikon. You don't want to miss anything out. And then once that's done, make sure you leave it to sit for at least an hour or 2 so that all the water can drain off. A lot of recipes, and this is my recipe, but a lot of recipes says that you should actually keep the water. I agree, keep it because you may need it to top up your seasoning later. Meanwhile, whilst the daikon is extracting water with the sugar and salt mixture, you should just leave that to the side. The next step is to prepare your garlic and onion. Now, there is no particular way that you should really prepare these. How I like to do it is essentially with a bunch of onions. You can dictate how much onions you want. I would go for 5 to 6, if not 7 bunches of spring onions. The thinner spring onions are also a great addition to it, but also the big bulbs of onions, don't remove them. Unfortunately, I had no access to the bigger bulb of spring onions, so if you can get access to them, use them, but these will do just fine. So I have gone and prepared these. I've cut them into inch or so, and then with the end where is the white and green part of it, I would cut it inch length and then down again to make it a 1/2 inch, just because the white head actually really imparts a lot more flavor than the actual green part. Once you finish preparing the spring onions, let's move on to garlic. Garlic, honestly, just mince it. It doesn't have to be really fine, it doesn't have to be grind, it doesn't have to be in any perfect shape. Essentially, I rough chopped it so it's sort of a grain of rice size. It's not necessarily that important to see how these are. Aesthetically pleasing way is actually to mince it to very fine, but essentially what you want with the garlic is to actually flavour the brine, which is the liquid that the vegetables sit in, and therefore there is not a great deal in importance of how it should be done, but I'll leave it up to you guys how you like it. So an hour and a half is up and the daikon has been sitting in the sugar and salt mixture, and actually they look like they've shrunk a little bit. Right now you can actually eat it, or actually you can sauteate it with like meat, fish. They're great as a stir fry as well. Once the daikon has been sitting in the water mixture, make sure you extract the water mixture and keep it. Don't throw it away, but if you do, it's not a big deal. Next, prepare 1 to 2 cups of Korean red chili. They're very affordable. You can buy it in most Asian supermarket stores, or you can order online. If you can't get it, normal supermarket may have it in your local area, but it's quite easy to find and source. If you can't, then I would use gochujang paste. It's a chili paste, but I have been asked whether you can use normal chili flakes, and they tend to be quite coarse. So if you're using like normal chili flakes that you buy on the store, make sure you grind them up. They need to sort of be in a very fine powder, so that you know the actual chili flavour imparts, but also you need it so that the surface area is larger. And then throwing into the mix, I've got 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. This is a great salty umami flavour. It pairs well with most vegetables. If you're either vinaigretting it, you're either fermenting it. If you don't have fish sauce, you can replace it with shrimp paste. It has actually a punchier flavour, and then depending on what you're going for as well, fish paste is actually a lovely complement. And sometimes I do add fish paste with the fish sauce just because it kind of adds the sweetness from the shrimp. So you should be able to get half a pint of the sugar and salt brine out of the daikon, if not more or less, depending on how much daikon you actually have. But don't worry, this liquid should be kept. Don't throw it away. If you have, it's not a big deal. So to season the daikon, I essentially will put the garlic that you've minced in, straight in. There is no perfect order or particular order, just throw everything in. I suggest to wear gloves at this point if you have gloves, like a food glove, just in case the chili actually, you know, catch a cut or you've got it embedded in your nails. I'm not so bothered because only me and my family will be having this. But if you're worried, especially if you've got thin skin or anything like that, just be mindful the chili is very potent. Wear a pair of gloves or wash your hands straight away. So that was the fish sauce. Pour the 4 tablespoons of fish sauce in. Obviously variable to how much daikon you have. And I have about 1.5 cups of the chili flakes. I suggest if you're doing about 3 or 4 daikons, then use about 1.5 cups. If you're doing less, I would use 1 cup or 3/4 cup. And also, depending on your, like, you know, flavour threshold, if you want it more chili, then add more chili flakes. If you want it a bit tad sweeter, saltier, or depending on how you like your daikon. The daikon has a lot of water content inside it, so don't be too concerned to like keep extracting it, because that brine is what it's going to be sitting in. And then if you don't have enough brine, it's too dry, you can add a little bit of water, you can add a little bit more flavouring, and you can add the brine that you have. If you're really concerned, vinegar is a great sauce as well. That would also sharpen the flavour, and there's no reason why you can't add vinegar at the end, especially if you're worried that there's not enough liquid. Really massage the chili flakes into your daikon. It's going to look a little bit rough and rugged at the beginning, and until it starts to exude a lot more liquid. Oh, it's really punchy as well. Once you've finished mixing all the seasoning, fish sauce, garlic and the chili flakes, let it sit, and the water from the daikon would also come out, making that brine that it will be held in. If it doesn't, then add the leftover brine that you made earlier. If not, worst case scenario, add some vinegar into it. It also bring out the flavour. And so once that's done, then add the onions at the end. All the ingredients that I've used today and instructions and the measurements will be all left in the description down below, so don't be too concerned if I'm rushing through this. This will probably last me 2 months. We'll go through it quite quickly, so in fact a month, but depending on like how much you guys go through, make sure that you separate it into a couple Tupperwares or boxes, or any containers you're using, so that 1, it doesn't get contaminated, 2, they last longer because it's less likely to spread if there was to be mold, and 3, you can actually put some of these into the cooler part of your fridge, and then obviously like one that's accessible, so then it can kind of like prolong its sell by date. These don't really have a sell by date, to be honest with you. Once you start to dig into them, make sure that you're using a clean utensil. You don't want anything to contaminate these. Also, they're very capable of actually sitting in your fridge for more than 2 months. I've known people to have kimchi for 6 months, if not best of 1 year. And the longer you leave it to sit in your fridge, the flavor profile of this will deepen. And the longer you leave it in your fridge, all the seasonings will penetrate further. Also, it will release more liquid, and that liquid tends to ferment. If you're worried if it ferments too much, make sure you burp the products, so essentially just opening the lid if it does start to ferment. Lovely. Right, so let that sit in a couple of hours, if not overnight, and then we'll come back and have a taste. So it's been roughly 24 hours since we've left the daikon and the seasoning in the bowl. Overnight, make sure when you do it, you put a lid on top of it so nothing can contaminate it, and then leave it in a cool area. You can leave it outside if it's a cool room, otherwise in the fridge will be perfectly fine. I left a plate on top of mine so that it pushes all the daikon down, pressurizing it, and then also allowing all the liquid to surface up. If you can't do that, you can just put cling film over it, leave it overnight, it will do the same thing. If there isn't, and this happens particularly with older daikons, you know, the ones that are a bit more bruised, but which has matured and created a leather skin on the outside, and if that's the case, it's not the problem. That's why we save the daikon brine from the day before. And if you did get rid of it, it's perfectly fine. There is another way that I would suggest to get around this issue. So I would have either a glass or a plastic Tupperware. Plastic Tupperware tends to stain more, but a glass Tupperware is great. So all you're doing is moving the daikon into that either glass or plastic Tupperware for storage. This is the process where you're actually now storing it for a long duration of period, where you can now consume it in your own time. So I've placed it in these lovely glass Tupperwares, and also make sure the lid is tight on. Make sure you fill your Tupperware right up to the top, and if you do have one that only fills halfway through, that's perfectly fine. I have an example here already, which is only halfway through, and that's perfectly normal. I don't think that's a huge issue whatsoever. What I suggest is that you make sure that the liquid sits above the halfway mark, so that every daikon, pieces of daikon is covered. If you don't have enough liquid, the solution is simply a sugar and vinegar brine. Essentially, you're pickling it with the vinegar, but actually the acidity is actually a really good added factor. So I do suggest to do it. On this occasion, I'm mixing the daikon sugar and salt brine with the vinegar with an additional sugar, so that it actually helps build up that sort of enzymes, and you're breaking down the daikon. So here is our brine and vinegar and sugar solution. It's very deep and dark in colour. It's a lovely crimson red, which comes off from the chili flakes, and so you're using this liquid essentially to cover the daikon, and anything excess you can either leave it to the side, keep it refrigerated, and for instance, if the daikon goes dry, you can always top it up. It most likely won't if you're topping up to the top or above where the daikon sits, and you'll see that the daikon will also release more liquid, so give it some headspace. Give it a good, at least 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters headspace, so you don't feel it right to the brim. You want to give it a chance for it to produce its own liquid and any bubbles it does produce. So there you are. So we've got 2 Tupperware, glass Tupperware of kimchi daikon, or spicy pickled kimchi daikon. You can add ginger, you can add garlic, you can add more chilies or less chili. You can actually add more vinegar, more sugar, however you like it. This is how I've been making it. This is specifically more of a kimchi Korean base pickled / fermented vegetable. But in fact, back at home in Vietnam, we also do a similar thing as well. It's actually a clearer brine rather than a red chili flake brine. But honestly, the technique's completely the same. I'm gonna give it a quick try now, because so far it's a stunning red colour, like that. It's a stunning colour. It has its own tinge already, and this has only been, what, 24 hours max of it sitting on the brine. It will soften, it actually will go even crunchier, just because you're taking away all that liquid that is held within the vegetable. Let me know how you guys make it at home. This is how we've been making it for the past, like, my entire life. But here it goes. Really sweet, really bit vinaigrette, very like spicy, especially a forward spice. It's still retaining its crunch, and that's how I like it. Keep these in the fridge, they need to be refrigerated, and it actually tastes so much better when it's chilled. And share it with your friends, family. You know, these are great gifts. You can have it, it's a compliment to any dish you have, with, even if it's just a basic bowl of rice and paired with a meat. It's wonderful. I regret putting that in my mouth now. I've left the recipe down below, so go try it yourself. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. Please go give this video a like, subscribe, and click on the bell, and share it with your family, friends and family. And leave down in the comments below how you like your pickled vegetable, pickled daikon, and whether you've used this technique or whether your parents have a different technique. And I'll see you next time. And next time we'll be actually doing a Vietnamese daikon pickle, and this is a personal favorite. See you next time. Cảm ơn các bạn. Good. Woo! Yeah, I regret it.